Hi everybody, my name is Jim with Full Moon Adventure Club, and today we're going to be trying to answer the question, how long will one battery run your RV furnace on a cold night? So for those of you that are kind of impatient and just want the answer, and that's why you're here, it's okay, I'll tell you. One 12-volt battery, 32 degrees outside, thermostat set to 65. It made it about 11 hours all 3 nights that I tested it, okay? So for those of us that want to really figure out what the criteria of the test was and see the time lapses and me going through the process, we'll jump into that right now. The battery that was used is a Walmart brand battery. It's a deep cycle. It's an Everstart group 27 DC, and it has 750 cranking amps and 109 amp hours. It's brand new, fully charged, ready to go. Never been used. So we're going to hook that up to the furnace in my 82 Class C Jamboree. It's an old guy. And we're going to see how long that lasts with a bunch of cameras. So practical application, practical test, and that'll really give us, a good idea of where to start here. The furnace in my RV draws 4.3 amps all by itself, but I am going to turn on 2 LED lights that are going to take 0.55 amps without the furnace on. And that's because you're always going to have some little bit of power draw inside your RV. So I think that's a good idea to do. You're going to have a light or a CO detector or something that's going to draw a little bit of power. But when you add everything up that I had plugged in, those 2 lights in the furnace, it was 5 amps, right around there. So great test point. And that furnace is only going to be drawing that power about half the time when it's cycling on and cycling off. I do have lights and the thermometer and some cameras all run off my trusty Kodiak, so they are completely separate from this test and are in no way hooked up to the RV system, just so you know. Okay, so what we're going to do is I'm going to throw up 2, the time lapses right here next to me, and we're just going to let those run so you can kind of just see the temperature and the voltage for yourself. Now with a lead acid battery like this, 12.6 is your resting voltage charged, and 12.2 is going to be our 50% mark. Most lead acid batteries, when they get to 12.2, that's 50%. So that's where we're going to stop the test. So what I'm going to do is this first night, I'm just going to start it up here. We're going to start at 12.6, and we're going to be starting at 5:46 p.m., and we're going to let that run. The temperature is kind of in the 40s, and it drops. And when we get to 4:33 a.m. at 12.2 volts, I stop the test, and we're at 10 hours and 45 minutes. Let's call it 11 hours. Night number 2, we're going to start that at 4:30 p.m. and it's a little bit colder that night. The voltage starts at 13.6, but that's just because I charged it all day. And the charging resting voltage for a battery is 13.6. But when you take it off the charger, it's going to go to 12.6 and then continue to drop. So that's what it does. And we end up stopping night number 2. It gets down to a low of 25 degrees. We're going to stop at 4 a.m. at 12.2 volts, and that's going to be 11 and a half hours. Colder night, but a little extra time, which was interesting. Night number 3, it's going to get down to a low of 27 degrees tonight, and we're going to start the test at 5:30 p.m. It's at 13.2 volts because I just charged it again. That's going to drop to 12.6 and then continue to drop until 4:25 in the morning, where we hit 12.2 volts, and I stop it. And when you do the math on that, that's 11 hours. So all 3 nights, pretty darn close to 11 hours as our baseline. And I'll tell you something that's kind of interesting. If you do the math on this battery, if you were just in the store trying to figure this out on your own, you would just take 109 amp hours, which this battery is, and then you would divide that by 5 amps, which is what we were pulling out of it. So you divide that by 5, you get 21.8, but that's fully discharged. We only want to go to 50%, so let's divide that by 2, and that gives us 10.9 hours. Very, very close to the 11 hours that we saw in all 3 nights of our test. However, what's strange is that would have been for 5 constant amps of draw throughout the entire night, which is not what we were doing. Our furnace was only kicking on half the time just to keep things warm, and then it shut down until the temperature dropped and kicked back on. So it was only pulling 0.5 amps while it was turned off and 5 amps half the time when it was turned on. So I would have expected that to be a little bit longer time. In your head, if I was figuring that out and I tried to do that, I'd be like, well, it'll probably last longer than that because I'm only using it half the time. So that's what I like about practical applications, where I actually stay up alone in my RV until 5 a.m. every morning, burning propane, just so I could really do this test and monitor the battery so that I could turn it off at 12.2 volts. So after being very tired after 3 nights of staying up till 5 a.m., there's another thing that became pretty apparent to me, and that's that you're going to have to stay up to monitor your battery system so you can turn it off at 50% at 12.2 volts. in order to keep from damaging your battery. And that is a pain. That is no fun for anybody. It's, if you're going to sleep longer than that, you know. So if you're going to do that, what you would need to do is get a battery monitor, a battery voltage monitor that has a voltage alarm maybe that can wake you up and tell you when it's at 12.2% and you can shut the system down. So that's kind of a pain. So I'm going to tell anybody and everybody that has an RV or a travel trailer or anything for the first time and you're going to boondock, get 2 batteries minimum. You need it for that furnace. It's going to get you well into the morning and you'll be in a lot better shape. Start with 2 batteries. 1 is just not a good place to start in my opinion, especially if you're going to be in a cold area and you need the furnace. Also, one more thing I am going to mention is that you have to charge that battery all day. As soon as I stopped this test, I plugged into shore power. I have a Xantrax 3-stage charge controller that did a really good job of putting a lot of power back into that guy until that night when I did the next test. So you need a lot of solar, or you need to be plugged into shore power, or you need to run your generator that entire time to charge that battery all the way back up before you complete this test again. I think that about covers it for all the information that I wanted to share with you guys. I hope that helps you out. If it did, please like, share, subscribe. And until the next video, my name is Jim with Full Moon Adventure Club. Thanks so much for watching, and happy camping.